I know you subbed the thumbnail, and while many of you probably think it's exaggerated, and it may very well be,
Fuck you!
but regardless, there is a lot of interesting content which wouldn't fly in kids media today. But there's plenty more morbid theming in the show, and today we'll be highlighting some of these insane bits, all while reviewing the show and really explaining why Justice League is what modern children's media needs today. Now, I'm sure we've all seen those shorts, particularly the Green Arrow ones. Now, we would never make shorts like those. We make shitty shorts of us ranking stuff with memes. Please check those out. Anyways, but there are scenes that are arguably much crazier, such as the first example we'll be looking at today. The sex slave episode.
Keep away from her!
The wings give her an exotic quality, wouldn't you agree? I don't think I'll put her in the army. I have just the place for her, as one of my personal attendants.
Don't even think about it.
Now, I'm sure I don't need to explain what he means by personal attendance, especially after he was just talking about how exotic she is. Like, come on, it's right in front of our faces. Oh my gosh. And the face he makes after Green Lantern says, "Don't even think about it." This dude doesn't know the half of it. And I'm not talking about Green Lantern beating him up or anything. I'm talking about how much of a baddie Hawkgirl is. Because, oh my gosh, she fine as hell. The type of chick you keep a picture of when you go off to war. The moment she took off her mask, me and my friend were practically jumping out of our seat congratulating Green Lantern. And look at his face. He knew. He knew. And I gotta say, this relationship is what got me interested in the two, as I originally didn't care for either of them, but then they went out and gave Green Lantern unlimited riz. Before this, the most entertained I was by Green Lantern storyline was because of how funny Flash was as his lawyer. Speaking of Flash and Green Lantern,
Then a single guy like you should be thanking me, because I've been finding out the ladies love a celebrity.
Why do you need a van? Wait, don't answer that. I don't want to know.
The Flashmobile's not just a van. It's an expression of my inner self.
I don't think I need to point out the connections between what Flash said, what's written out on the van, and the van's movements. I love Flash. He comes off as an idiot, but the more you watch, the more you realize that just how genuine and kind-hearted he is. Arguably my favorite character in the show. I honestly just wish we got more of him. Now on to the next one.
Least he could have done was put up some bail for us.
All Shay cares about is Shay. We'd still be in the joint if it hadn't been for your mom. How's she gonna pay back all that money?
Yeah, she'll just have to keep dancing for a few more years.
I mean, just the sign, the music, and the building they're exiting from would be enough to raise some eyebrows. But then you get crazy dialogue like this. She must be one hell of a Zumba instructor. Hilarious stuff, but not the type of dude I would want to hang around with. This wasn't accidental. The show constantly flirted with adult themes, but masked them just enough to slide past censors. Now, I'm not entirely sure how, but boy, am I glad they did, as we got some of the best content from the DC cast due to the fact that the creators of the Justice League weren't just trying to make a show for kids. They were trying to make a show that was entertaining, which isn't just attempting to slyly put in some sexual innuendos into a kids show. It's in being willing to tackle complex issues. One such example of this is the show's constant use of lobotomy, with there being an alternate future version of Superman whose way of sidestepping the morality problem of whether or not you should kill a villain is to simply lobotomize them. And not only do we see several of those who receive this treatment, we also get to see Superman straight up do this to Doomsday. And it's not like this is the only morbid thing we see, as we see someone straight up die via asteroid. And then we also see the Question get tortured with electricity. I will say one thing I like about this scene in particular is how the Question responds by spouting random funny facts. He appears a lot in one of the seasons in Unlimited, which is much appreciated. I actually wish we got more of him. But if all of this isn't enough for you, there's an episode where we see the effects of having immortality, but not eternal youth. Ah yes, what better way of seeing the fates worse than death? Ah yes, what better way of seeing fates worse than death than on a cartoon rated for the youngest possible demographic? The show wasn't just capable of maturity, but cruelty. And it's this willingness to dissect complicated issues of death, forgiveness, and change is what helped make it so compelling. It allows children to view something that normally an adult would watch, but in a manner that is safe and coherent. While for an adult, it makes it so that you're genuinely thinking about what the best course of action is in many of these situations. And it's important to highlight that it's not just that the show is willing to show these, but the level of maturity and execution that it's capable of. With these narrative arcs feeling less like a story someone made up that has to hit certain beats, and more like a story about people trying to do what's right while also dealing with their own flaws and their own problems, with their actions and others having consequences. The show clearly respects its audience's intelligence enough to follow many of these consequences to their narrative conclusion. All thanks to verisimilitude. I'm not doing that again. To learn more, watch my Invincible video. Anyways, Justice League wasn't edgy or sexual simply for shock value. Rather, it was mature because it treated superheroes like adults in complicated worlds. Now, this isn't to say it was perfect, as in the first 2 seasons, the episodes centered around Wonder Woman and the Amazons felt really slow and uninteresting in comparison to other storylines. Another problem is that there are times when members of the Justice League kind of feel shoved in there, with there being moments where they just say their generic lines of dialogue that they would normally say, even if they don't quite fit the current narrative arcs the character's on, or even fit the situation. One example being when the Justice League briefly breaks up and Diana suddenly starts mouthing off about how all men are the same, and while you could argue that it's her regressing a bit because of the context of the episode, I feel that even if you were to take the context in mind, it still feels a bit weak and could have been strengthened if they executed it a bit better. While there are other problems, they are quite small, and harping on them I feel would distract from the actual quality of the show, especially as most of them are earlier on, when it feels like the showrunners are still figuring out some of the finer details of the cast dynamics and general writing of the show. With these problems being phased out over time, as I actually quite like the later Wonder Woman episodes, and the dynamics between the characters becoming a major strength of the show. My only real problem with the show as a whole is that I wish it was longer. Yes, I understand that it has 5 seasons with a satisfying ending no less, but the writing just kept getting better and better. And I ended up growing quite attached to the new cast of characters introduced in the ultimate part of the show. Of course, this isn't a flaw, but instead me just being greedy and wanting more. So instead of doing that, you guys should check out the show and also watch my other stuff. We're slowly trekking towards the YouTube Partner Program requirements, and I want to hopefully speed this along. Small channel, stand up! Oh, I guess that was cringe. I'll just go now. Okay.